What's going on, you guys?
Hey!
My beautiful wife, Jill, and I are going to review our first 3 full years, so going back to 2020, 2021, and 2022 on Airbnb, how we scaled and grew each year, and how much revenue and profit our properties brought in. We're going to talk about some of the mistakes that we made that are easily avoidable for you all out there. The highs, the lows, and
New strategies.
Yeah, new strategies, and then we'll touch on kind of where we're at today. It's kind of crazy. I was just adding up the numbers before starting to record this. Looking back to where we started is nuts, but it's really humbling as well. So a lot of people that see my content generally may think it's very out of reach or out of touch because we'll talk about maybe specific numbers from today with our 7 properties and other companies that are doing really big numbers, which is awesome, but it's really helpful to show you guys where we actually started and how we built this little empire of ours.
Yep.
Yeah. So we got our first property at the end of 2019 in Nashville, Tennessee. We did a whole nother video, which we'll link here somewhere, that broke down some of the details on our first 2 properties in our first full year. But just to keep this one a little bit more brief, we got this property, launched it in December of 2019, had a bunch of bookings rolled in, and then COVID hit, liquidated our retirement accounts, bought our second one, quickly scaled to our third within the first 12 months, hit financial freedom by the end of that first full year on Airbnb, which is crazy. That first full year was dampened a lot by COVID and the travel restrictions and stuff like that, especially in Nashville. We had 2 in Nashville, 1 in Gatlinburg at that point in time. So our 3 properties that year only did $128,000 in revenue and $41,000 in profit, most of which was from that Gatlinburg property just in the 2.5 months that we had it live in 2020.
Yeah.
First year, touch on just a couple of those mistakes that we made and what we should have done, what we didn't do.
Yeah. First mistakes for year 1 was probably just not having an organized way of setting up. So things probably took a little bit longer. Setting up, installing, ordering furniture. So, time is money as soon as you purchase that property. So every month that goes by that you're not renting is another mortgage you have to pay out of pocket without rents coming in.
And every day is an opportunity cost for
Exactly.
the rents coming in.
Yeah, exactly. So that, as well as just efficiency when it comes to operations. So automated messaging, scheduling our cleaners, and that just caused so much headaches for us and more time working on the business in the business instead of on the business. So once we got those all set up and we were like, oh my gosh, we should have done this from day 1, but we didn't. Once we got those up and running, we saved so much more time and we were able to focus on new investments, new strategies moving forward.
Yeah, you guys have to adopt tech software where you can, or even leverage VAs, maybe virtual assistants. But yeah, tech was the biggest thing. I mean, that'll allow you to manage a single property in 30 to 60 minutes a week.
And it may even do it better when it comes to like pricing, dynamic pricing. They've got so much data that you can't even think of. And especially if you're investing in a market that you're not familiar with, or you don't live there, you've never really visited that much, you may not know about seasons or certain events that are coming by. And a lot of these tools have all that programmed automatically into your pricing.
Yeah, 100%. So yeah, our first year cash flowed almost $41,000, which honestly, guys, we were still like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. This is
a lot
like
of money.
half our salary, it's pretty nuts. So we saw the writing on the wall. And the biggest thing though was in November of 2020, this is 11 months after getting our first ever property, we were financially free. We had like $14,500 of profit after paying the mortgages, expenses, and all that other good stuff. So that was crazy. So we were eager to get 1 more property before quitting our jobs, which we ultimately did a few months later. So we got our 4th property. We closed in January of 2021. We partnered with someone on this deal. Really undervalued property. We got for like, I don't know, 70,000 under appraised value or something like that. And put in a bunch of work, rehabbed it, converted a garage to a theater room, added tons of amenities that the Gatlinburg travelers love. And this one was an instant hit as soon as it launched.
Super unique.
Yeah, it literally, the day we launched it, I think that same week we quit our job. So,
but to go back to partnering, that's a new strategy that we kind of adopted because we didn't want to deplete all of our money because we knew we were about to quit our jobs and not have any income. We may not have even qualified for the loan because we may not have made enough money at the time. So we leveraged a partner to be able to also use their skill set. They had a a development or construction skill set. So they managed a lot of the rehab. We did a lot of the management as well as analysis. So leveraging different people's skill sets as well as other people's capital to be able to get into deals faster and maybe even bigger deals is an amazing strategy to think about.
And while we did that, and that was a really good thing, we also made the mistake of not doing that more. So I was starting to post content at this time, and it was,
or even in the beginning when we didn't have enough money to start.
Yeah, but I didn't even have a big following, but there were still people reaching out. Hey, I would love to partner on a deal. And I think we were holding our cards too close to our chest, like, oh no, we want to do everything ourselves type of mindset. And looking back,
and I'm not a good sharer. I'm an only child. I don't like sharing things.
But looking back at what the real estate market has done the past few years, we wish we bought like 500 homes with partners and capital partners.
Hindsight.
Hindsight. But the point I'm getting at, though, is don't make that same mistake. If you feel like you don't have enough money to start, enough knowledge to start, but you have money, you have something to offer, and somebody else out there has whatever you're missing, but you have what they're missing. Partner together and then start investing sooner rather than later.
Totally.
And the second thing I'll mention is rental arbitrage. A lot of my students, we teach this, they start with rental arbitrage because you can really start with like 10 to 20 grand and really scale cash flow quickly. So you guys don't even have to buy the property to do it. And then of course you get into co-hosting and managing other people's properties. I've posted tons of content on this, so if you just search my old videos, you guys can learn more about those strategies, or grab the ebook down below in the description. That's completely free. So we don't want to harp on that too much in this video.
I was about to say, super sidetrack. Let's get back on track.
So that fourth property we launched, big hit, right? And this is when travel also started to come back to Nashville in like spring or mid 2021. So we had 4 properties that were rolling, and we quit our jobs. And I want to pause here because this was the most liberating thing ever. We've quit jobs before, but it was to take another job.
Yeah.
So what was you quit your job like 5 days before I did, so you had 5 days extra of freedom on top of me.
Yeah, it was amazing.
What did that feel like leaving the job for the final time?
Yeah, I mean, I recorded my feet walking out of the door for the last time. I mean, it was the most it sounds so cliche, but like freeing, liberating, like, all right, now I have like, the world is my oyster. I can do whatever I want. Like, we've created this life, and I'm like, you know what? I don't have to answer to anyone besides you, and that's it.
Yeah, it was pretty
wild. I don't know. It was just really fun, exciting, like
to have time control. It wasn't even so much about the money. The money is just the tool to create time freedom if you invest it the right way.
Yeah.
And the prior year, we were sort of manifesting in this new vision that before we eventually wanted to have kids together, we wanted to hop in a camper van and travel around the US for like 6 to 12 months.
And COVID was a great time to do it because
perfect time to do it.
Everyone all those national parks were like roaring with like opportunity because everyone was trying to get out of the cities.
Yeah. So it was a perfect time. So we actually, the year before when we started getting properties, we put a map up on our wall right in front of our staircase, and we started writing notes and pinpointing where we wanted to visit, and we drew a line. And this was eventually the route we took, more or less so.
Do we have a photo of it? If so, we need to
put it in. We'll throw it up here. Hopefully we have one. So we took that trip, and like the day we left, we were like, this is the best feeling ever. It was just very freeing.
Yeah.
No job. It's not like we were taking vacation and PTO. We had to come back and report to our boss or our team. So that was great. And I think we had the light bulb moment after we got our first property and we saw the cash flow coming in. But like the pinch me moment happened in July of 2021. So this is a year and a half in. We had 4 properties, and I think they brought in $80-some thousand in revenue, and we cash flowed on 4 properties over 50 grand. And we were just sitting in our camper van in some park somewhere. I think it was out in I don't even know. I think we were in Wyoming at the time, maybe Jackson. And we were looking at the numbers, and we were like, this is ridiculous. Like we worked like 4 hours this month, and we just made $50,000 profit, and we're paying down the mortgages. They're growing in value. So this is just like, it feels like we're playing an unfair game, So
to piggyback off of leveraging technology, while we were traveling our camper van, we still managed all of our properties remotely from the middle of nowhere, all by ourselves.
Limited cell service.
Very limited cell service, but we were still able to do that and still provide a really good experience for our guests. So a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, my market that I live in is not a good market to invest in. And we're like, you don't need to live in your market. You can manage remotely. Technology, it's like the 21st century. You can do whatever you need through technology. So with that being said, we were able to leverage all of these tools and still provide them an amazing experience for our guests and still deal with maintenance issues and cleaning and reordering supplies and all of those things from our camper van.
Yeah, we did have a couple, like we said, it's not all cash flow, butterflies, and rainbow. Like there are a couple hard parts when you're self-managing and you don't have an established team, or if you have employees yet, which I don't recommend first starting out. You know, you're trying to save all that cash flow.
Yeah.
So all the major issues, they always seem to happen on a weekend or around a holiday when nobody is working, you can't get a hold of someone. So we have had several occurrences when we were traveling either in the camper van, or we were in Ireland once in 2022 where like we had to replace an HVAC unit remotely on different time zones. So there are some headaches that pop up.
But it's a headache, and it's nothing that you can't
It's a bump in the road,
handle.
and it's well worth a couple extra hours trying to sort through an issue when you're netting tens of thousands of dollars a month just on a few properties.
Which then brings you to the importance of building your team. And the team that you do have, so your maintenance team, you always have like an HVAC person on call, you have a plumbing person on call, but your cleaning team is your ride or die. These people are in your property more than you are. So they see the condition, they see what's going on, they see maintenance issues. So you need to trust them, and they need to trust you to be able to, you know, get everything in mint condition.
Yeah. You have to level set expectations with your team too, because if you just hire cleaners and assume that they're going to go report damage and do these things, they're not. So you need to level set expectations and then pay them accordingly. So 2022 was great, or 2021 rather. We were traveling in our camper van, having the time of our lives. We had 4 properties. We acquired our 5th one in November, but we didn't launch until like next April because it was a big rehab property. So the 4 properties brought in $605,000 in rental income. 4 properties. This is why we love short-term rentals, guys. You will never find that in a million years. I don't even care if you're renting out a palace as a long-term rental. You're probably not bringing in $605,000 in gross rental income. And these are just 4 like pretty average single-family homes. And then the profit on those 4 on the 605K was $370,000.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and I think our profit after we split with our partner on that one property was still north of 300K. I think it was like 305 or 310,000.
I mean, just let that sink in. $300,000. Like that is so much money. Like think about what you can do with that. We could buy another home with that. Hence, new strategies of then the snowball effect that all this income can now compound and then give you that money, no more out of your pocket, just your profit off of Airbnb can give you the means to be able to continue to scale and purchase more properties.
Yeah, and one big mistake we see a lot of people make, and this doesn't have to be Airbnb related or real estate related, when people level up their income, what happens? They level up their expenses and the liabilities in their lives. And look, we get it. We want to have nicer things. We have a nice home now and nicer cars and travel a lot. But you don't want to let lifestyle creep set in, meaning every time you bump your pay up, you bump your expenses up, because you're basically
just because you can.
Yeah, you're perpetuating, essentially living paycheck to paycheck. There's a lot of people who, when you look at their profit each month, meaning after all their income comes in, all their expenses go out, they're still technically paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah.
Just because you make 300 grand doesn't necessarily mean you're rolling in it, right?
Yeah.
So fortunately for us, we were in a camper van. And we rented our previous home out as a long-term rental for a year, then eventually sold it.
Yeah.
But we had like no expenses. And we had
great.
this level of income coming in with our lowest expenses ever. Like I'm talking like maybe 2 or 3K a month max, depending on like what food we bought.
Yeah, because we didn't have health insurance for the first half, which was
camper van payment, and then the gas and food and park fees if there are any. So
insurance.
That was crazy. And then moving to 2022, we realized that our cash flow is phenomenal, but our slow season was really January, February, maybe
winter.
A little bit of March, like late, like winter, early spring. So we wanted to diversify our markets to establish better cash flow throughout all months. So
which was specific to us and our current portfolio. It's going to be different for everyone.
Yeah, for sure. So Gatlinburg and Nashville, both in Tennessee, are busy March to December for the most part. So we were looking for a place that might be busier like December to April. And so the further south you go in Florida, this is where we ended up in our camper van to buy our next 2 homes, was in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And these markets have been okay. They have performed actually to this point in time not as good as I anticipated. There's been more expenses creep up, like insurance, utility bills, like everything has kind of skyrocketed, which has really dampened our cash flow. But the overall investment has still been positive.
Yeah.
But the cool thing here is real estate values went up. We did rehab on 2 of these properties in the past, and we did a couple cash out refinances on those properties. So we're able to leverage new equity that has been created over the past couple of years, tax-free.
Yeah.
And so we used all of that money and just reinvested it into these 2 new properties in Fort Lauderdale. One that we bought at the end of 2021, and then one that we bought in the winter of, or like late winter of 2022.
Yeah.
Both of those properties went live in April, May of 2022. I keep getting these years mixed up. 2022. So by this time we had 6 properties live. Granted, when we have refinances at a higher appraised value and we pull money out, we actually have increased mortgage payments. So our cash flow is less on some of these older properties than in previous years, but the overall return on equity as a whole in the portfolio is greater.
Yeah.
So that's why we did that with these properties, and we get more tax benefits and appreciation. So in 2022, we had the 6 properties. They did $899,000 in gross rental income.
Yeah.
Now, the profit was $372,000. Now, keep in mind, we repurposed a lot of that equity over, and then some of those properties, 2 of them were only rented for about half of the year. So although our cash flow or profit was not that much higher, the overall net benefit was substantial.
And it's a good long-term play as well.
Yeah, but you also have to think, now we have 6 properties instead of 4, so there was more equity gain through principal pay down on the loan, more tax advantages. We could do cost segregation studies, drastically reduced our tax bill, and then 6 properties appreciating versus just 4. So the overall net benefit is much higher.
And the cash flow's still pretty good.
Yeah, and it'll be solid this year in 2023. We acquired our 7th property, and that property is just absolutely ripping right now, like $30K a month rental income. We'll cover that in another video later this year, but it's crazy looking back and just seeing,
So do you have any regrets on the past 3 years? On how we did things?
Not really. I think looking back on it, knowing what we know now, I probably wouldn't have bought in Fort Lauderdale. I think they're still good investments, but I think I wish for bigger properties like that, with the amount of funds it took to get those up and running, I wish we invested in a vacation market like the North Carolina or Tennessee mountains that we're more familiar with. And even though that wouldn't help necessarily with the seasonality aspect, the overall cash flow and net benefit has proven much higher in those markets. And for big properties, you get a higher occupancy typically in vacation markets that don't have crazy seasonality versus cities, because it's harder to fill midweek midweek bookings for big properties in urban areas, because there's just less big groups that are traveling. So for me, that was it. What about you?
Yeah, I think my biggest regret is to actually not partner. Even if it was just a capital partner, someone who's like very silent, they just give us our money, we work out some deal with equity or cash flow, and then we can just attain more properties, as opposed to just waiting to do it ourselves. And I
wish we also outsourced design and setup, because early on you kind of want to do the grunt work and save a bunch of costs.
I am not a designer by any means, but I got the job done kind of.
No, you did for sure. Each property got better and better, but like with our 7th property, we used a company that I'm involved with, Summerled Designs, and the girls that run that company day to day are amazing.
Top-notch.
That's why that property is doing so well. And we're actually going to reinvest in some of our older properties.
Well, and there's no way we could have done the design that they did in the time that they did it.
No,
there's
it's
just
incredible.
No way.
So we've noticed with the competition ramping up in Airbnb, you have to go all out with design and amenities and make sure you're like a top competitor. So that's going to help have longevity in your investments. I think that's really it. The only other thing I wish we did more of sooner was do like maybe some co-hosting and stuff, but ultimately we started Home Team Vacation Rentals. Elliot, who was a student of mine way early on, started that company, and then I joined on. We're 50-50 partners there, and that thing is growing like crazy.
I honestly don't wish we'd co-host.
Yeah?
No. I mean, because we didn't have control over the property, and sometimes it's hard to work with owners that don't want to make changes or adjustments. I think I would have just rather focused our own portfolio and like partnering and purchasing more properties.
But it is a good option for people who are looking to scale and they don't have much money.
In the beginning, maybe just to get our feet wet and learn all of those mistakes before purchasing, maybe.
And the other point I'm getting at too is something that we do with Home Team. I wish we did earlier on was hire a virtual assistant or maybe an assistant to help with guest communication. Even though you can automate 90% of it, you're still responsible to responding to like the nuanced questions, just like repetitive. So hiring a VA, pretty cheap, like $5 to $8 an hour, that can handle the day-to-day questions. Even teach them how to do pricing or search for properties for you would have been a big help.
Yeah.
But overall, we have no regrets. Obviously, this has been a very fruitful business for us and for so many people that we've personally worked with within, BNB Investor Academy. But yeah, guys, definitely don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like this video if you got some value from it, and then don't forget to download the free ebook. 7 chapters of free resources for you guys to hopefully get started and maybe jumpstart your journey to Airbnb as well.
See ya.